Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're going to do the story of Purim. So Purim is a celebration. It's a festival, a Jewish festival that started today, um, and it continues through to tomorrow because Jewish holidays go from night to night instead of from day to day. Um, but Purim is it's the celebration of the Jewish salvation from annihilation that was going to happen at the hands of a man named Haman. Um, and the main heroes are Mordecai and Esther. So this is the story of the Book of Esther. Okay, so Mordecai, who I just mentioned, he's the cousin of Esther. Now, the reason that they are in this Persian story, this story in Persia, so Persia has conquered their part of the known world, and that includes Judah. And so they have brought back captives to their different cities, but the capital city, Susa, so um, blanked on his name, sorry, Mordecai and Esther are now in Susa. So Mordecai is actually Esther's cousin, but he's her older cousin, and her father and mother are dead. So he takes care of her like a father. Her Jewish name is Hadassah, but we know her as Esther, and that was her Persian name that was given to her. So pause right there, and they will come back into the story. So the story starts off in the Book of Esther about King Xerxes. He's having a huge party that's going on for weeks on end, and he's celebrating his awesomeness and how he's mighty and he has conquered all these lands, and he's showing off all of his loot, and he's showing off all of his wealth, right? So that's part of the reason that kings would have these huge banquets. It's a sign of status and a sign of wealth. Like, look at, I can give you all these things. It's nothing for me to host this huge banquet. And so, it's just nights on end of feasting and drinking. Okay, so right now the men are in at a drunken party, and the king has been showing off all of his goods, and now he has come up with the most brilliant idea in his drunken stupor that he is going to show them the most beautiful thing in his possession, and that would be his wife. So Queen Vashti was known for being beautiful, and so he's like, I'm going to show him. So he sends his servants. He's like, go get Vashti and bring her here and tell her I want her to show off all of her beauty and splendor. So the servants go to Vashti, and she's like, excuse me? Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. You can go tell him I said no. I would have hated to be that messenger. So here's the deal. Like, he was treating her like a possession, and yeah, so old school ways, women were possessions. But a king especially, didn't show off his wife like that. You could show off a concubine because in that sense you own them because they were like a slave or like a servant. But to show off his wife that would humiliate her. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that in his head he was just like, she's so beautiful. I'm so drunk. You guys should see. That's probably what happened. Anyway, so she says no. So now the king is ticked because now he's embarrassed because he's already told everybody, I'm going to show you how beautiful my wife is. And she said no, and she didn't come. So he's like asking his advisors. He's like, well, what am I supposed to do about that? And they're like, whoa, this is a really bad example because, like, if the queen can tell the king no, then other women throughout your kingdom are going to believe they can tell their husband no, and this will be their husbands, and this whole thing's going to spiral. You got to get rid of her. So the king, he exiles her, right? He's like, and he exiles her. Now, here's the thing. The king exiled her, and then he got really depressed, and he got really sad, and he got really lonely, which is kind of funny because he has a huge harem. So that makes you think that the man actually liked his wife, okay? So anyway, so he's super depressed. So his advisor's like, what are we going to do? So they come up with an idea. They're like, Your Majesty, you need a new queen. This is obvious. So we have a plan. We're going to scour all of your lands and bring the most beautiful women to you, all the virgins, and you can choose from one of them, and that can be your queen. He's like, okay, sounds like a good idea. So they go and kidnap all these poor virgins and bring them back. And so one of them is Esther. Now, Mordecai tells Esther, he's like, do not tell them that you're Jewish. And so she listens to him. She doesn't tell him that she's Jewish. And the Bible tells us that when Esther went in to meet the guy who was in charge of the harem, the eunuch, she found favor with him, and he fell in love with her, not like romantically, like he gave her great favor. So he made sure she had the best beauty regimens, that she had the best ladies helping her, setting her up for what's going to be basically her audition with the king. And like these things are intense. So they spend 12 months preparing just to meet the king. It's like 6 months of like oils and another 6 months of perfume. So like your skin was like silky smooth and you smelled like a rose or whatever his favorite smell was, because you like literally bathed in it and sat in the smoke of the incense of it for over 6 months. Okay, so and then what we learn is that Mordecai stays at the King's Gate. Now the King's Gate was a real place, like obviously, but it's not just a gate that you walk in. It's a structure where people come and they hang out and they're trying to get their petitions to the king or to another politician, and they're sending messages in and out of the palace via messengers who can go in. Okay, so it's not like he's just sitting out by like a little like wooden fence or something like that. So he's hanging out in the King Gates area. So it doesn't tell us if he like had a job there and that's why he hung out, or if he started really hanging out there so that he could be around since Esther was there. Anyway, because at the end of the 12 months when all the virgins are presented, it says that he's there, but she doesn't really acknowledge him because she obeyed him and didn't tell anybody she was Jewish, and everybody did know that Mordecai was a Jew. Okay? So anyway, on the night that any of these girls went to go meet the king, they were allowed to take anything that they wanted, any piece of jewelry, any garment, any tool in their toolkit that they thought would give them an edge. And it says that Esther, she just asked the head of the harem, like, what do you think is best, and only took what he said. And then the Bible said that above all the women, Esther became King Xerxes' favorite. So he was like, I want that one, and she became the queen. Okay, so we pause right there. Now there's a man named Haman who's like the king's right hand man. Okay, so Haman is really full of himself, and so he got the king to issue this decree that when he was walking down the street or riding down the street, that he had to have somebody go before him and be like, like you have to kneel before Haman. So Mordecai refuses to kneel before Haman. And so people are like asking him, they're like, dude, why aren't you kneeling before this guy? He's like the king's right hand man. He's like, I'm a Jew. He's like, I only kneel before God. I'm not going to kneel before this man. Now you got to remember, like Persian kings had set themselves up as like they were the earthly representation of a god. So if you knelt before that king, it's like you're kneeling before the god. And so it may have been that he was also arguing that, like, he's setting himself like up as a god, and I only bow before one God because I'm a Jew. So Haman hears about this, and he's ticked, right? He's like, oh, yeah, does he know who I am? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, so instead of just wanting to be like, I'm going to kill Mordecai, he's like, I'm going to kill all the Jews are horrible, I'm going to kill them all. And I really hope nobody just splices that part of this video. Anyway, so he's like coming up with this plan. And so he goes home and he's like, I want to kill all the Jews. And his wife and his advisors are like, well, you're the king's right hand man. Just go tell him. So he goes and tells the king. He's like, listen, there's this people group, from all of your adventures, and they don't love you, and they don't respect your laws, your commandments. They're really actually causing problems, and I think we should annihilate them. And then you get their plunder, right? And the king's like, oh, wow, that's horrible. And Haman's like, tell you what, I'll even put in, like, I think it was like 10,000 or 10 million, something crazy amount of silver, like towards this. Like, this is how much he hates not just Mordecai, like now he has become like towards the whole Jewish race, right? And the king's like, okay, well, take the money and you do that. It, it says keep the money, but the deeper translation of it is go ahead and take the money and then take what you need to go do it. And then the king, and it says like the king and Haman sat down and had dinner and some drinks, but the rest, like Susa, the city that they were in, was highly confused. They're like, we don't understand why or what just happened. Okay, so moving forward. So Mordecai is like, what? So he's wearing sackcloth and ashes, so it's like he's torn his clothes. He's only wearing like this, like basically like a potato bag. He's throwing ashes on his head, but he can only go as far as the king's court, or the king's gate that we talked about, right? And so Esther's attendants are like, hey, you know the guy that sends messages back and forth? He's out there being really weird. So she sends an attendant out. She's like, what's up? So he sends a message back, and he's like, hey, so this is what happened. And she's like, I don't know what you want me to do about it. And he's like, what, you think just because you're the queen that you're gonna like get saved from this? He's like, you're Jewish. And he's like, you're part of this too. He's like, you have to, who knows, maybe you were put in this position for this very time so that you could save your people. He's like, you better figure out something to do about this because we're all going to die. And she's like, and he's like, you need to go to the king. And she's like, I can't go to the king. So the law was that nobody could approach the king. Like, the king had to like summon you. So if you went to approach the king, like, it was automatic death unless he had he had a scepter, so like his king stick, right? Unless he extended it to you, and then that was like his signal of like, no, that's okay, they could come in. But if he didn't do that, like he was grumpy that day, or he didn't like you, or like whatever, you were dead. Like, you couldn't just be like, oh well, he's my husband, I'm going in. It still didn't matter. And so he's like, when Mordecai's like, I don't care, you gotta figure out something, you gotta talk to him. So she's like, okay, we're gonna fast and pray. You get all the Jews together, and I'll make all my women do it with me. And we're gonna fast and pray for 3 days, and then after 3 days, I'll go do it. So on the third day, she puts on all of her royal regalia. She does her hair, her makeup. She's looking legit, right? She's gonna remind this man, I'm the one you fell in love with. So she walks into his throne room, right? Holding her breath, and he looks at her, and he's like, oh. And he extends his scepter, right? So she's like, okay. He's like, Esther, what are you doing here? He's like, I love you so much. He's like, you ask me anything you want. I'll even give you up to half my kingdom. What can I do for you? Because he's not dumb. I mean, she just came to him, like, risking her life coming to him. She obviously wants/needs something. So, but instead of asking in front of everybody, in his royal court, she goes, actually, if you and Haman could come to a meal that I've prepared, that would be awesome. And so the king's like, got it. Somebody go find Haman. Right? So they go to the meal that she's prepared. And they're all happy. The best way to a man's heart is through his stomach, is the saying, right? And so they've eaten, and they're all full. They're just hanging out. And the king's like, so what's up, babe? And Esther's like, you know what? I'm going to make you another meal. Come tomorrow. Both of you. And the king's like, okay, yeah, no problem. So the king leaves, and the Haman's making his way home, and then he sees Mordecai, and he remembers how much he hates Mordecai. And so he gets home, and his wife's like, what's your deal? And he's like, oh my gosh, I had, like, only the king and I went to go hang out with the queen. It was amazing. Obviously, I'm the most amazing man in the world. And then I see Mordecai, and I just couldn't handle life. Right? And so the queen's like, you know what? You need to kill him. Because he's like, I can't come soon enough, because the edict to kill these Jews was like a few months out. And he's like, I just can't. She's like, you know what? Why don't you build, we would say gallows, but really it's like a pike. They didn't like hang them, they like skewered them. 75 feet tall. His wife, go big or go home, right? Why don't you make a pike like 75 feet tall, and you go tomorrow morning, you go and bail Mordecai on that as an example of people who don't treat you right. Okay? He's like, that's a good idea. I'm going to go ask the king tonight if I can do it. Okay? So pause the story there. So a while back, remember how Mordecai likes to sit at the king's gate, right? So while he was there, he had overheard two guards conspiring to assassinate the king. And so he had sent Esther a message, and she had told the king, and these guys were captured and killed, and the king's life was saved. Okay? And that was the end of that story. It was just like a little bloop in history. Okay? So we're at this night. So day one of the feast is over. Haman is planning to kill Mordecai. He's on his way to go tell the king. But he's going to like go wake up the king to go tell him. It's like the middle of the night. So the Bible tells us that the king could not sleep. Okay, and so he calls for one of his servants. He's like, dude, just read me like the daily notes. You know, they're called the annals, the chronicles of the kings, but basically they're the daily notes. Just read through that because it's going to be boring, right? And so put him to sleep. So the servant's reading, and he gets to the part about Mordecai. The king's like, wait, did I do anything to reward this dude? And the servant's like, no, you didn't. Just went on. He's like, well, that's horrible. I should have done something to reward him. So at this moment, Haman is like requesting to see the king. So the king brings him in. The king's like, hey, got a question for you. So say there's this person that the king really wants to reward and wants to show his appreciation to. What do you think the king should do for him? Mordecai's like, well, obviously, in his head, he's like, that's gotta be me. Who else does the king love? He's like, you know what I think the king should do? The king should have one of his high officials go get a horse, if he was like a horse, special kind of horse, and put the man on the horse and have the king's own official walk around saying, this is what's done for the man the king wishes to honor, and point him out and ride him around the city. The king's like, you know what? That's an awesome idea. So in the morning, can you go get Mordecai, go put him on the horse, and I want you to be the man who walk him around and say this, right? So now Haman's like, right? This is horrible. So he has to do that in the morning. So he goes and does that, and the Zilla is going at home, go tell his family, and his family's like, oh no, I can't believe this happened. So it says, well, he's like so upset. The eunuchs come and like, hey, it's time for you to come have dinner with the queen. So they go to have dinner with the queen. Sorry guys, I know this is a longer one than normal. They go to have dinner with the queen, and so the king is like, okay, no, really, what's up? And she's like, well, somebody's trying to kill me. He's like, what? Tell me who it is. She's like, and not just me, like, and my people. Like, I never really told you, but I'm not Persian. They're trying to kill my people. And she's like, if they were just gonna put us in slavery, that's not a big thing to bother you with. She's like, but like, they want to take our lives, and that's horrible. Like, exterminate us. He's like, who is it? And she's like, him. It's Haman. And the king's like, ah. And he's so angry that he just like, it says like he storms out of the room, and he's like in his gardens, like he's just trying to wrap his mind around it. So he goes for a walk. So Haman's like, oh no. So he's like trying to plead with the queen. So he gets so desperate that it says he throws himself, and so he falls on her couch. So he could have like thrown himself like in desperation, or maybe he tripped or whatever. So you gotta realize that they didn't sit in chairs where they were eating. They were actually like little like size of like love seats, like little couches that they reclined on, and they had special couches, and they were beautified by status and such. So the king walks in, and all he sees is his wife on the couch and Haman grabbing her, and he's like, you're gonna like try to like what, like rape my wife now, like in front of me? Like, not only do you want to kill her, are you serious? Guards. And so when it says they put the cover over his head, and that was significant. Like, you're gonna die. Like, when that happened, lights out, literally, was going to happen. And so the servants are doing that. They're like, oh, hey, by the way, Your Majesty, so, that Mordecai dude that, just saved your life? So Haman was planning on sticking him on a 75-foot pole and killing him. He's like, do that to him instead. And then he gives all of Haman's estate to Esther, right? So Esther brings in Mordecai, and she's like, I'm really Jewish, and this is what happened. And so she makes Mordecai the estate manager. And then she tells the king, she's like, she and Mordecai are like, listen, this is great, we're very grateful, but there's still this edict that people are supposed to go out and kill us. So the edict said that on a certain day of a certain month, that all the citizens in each city were to arm themselves and attack all the Jews, kill them, and take all their goods. That was the edict. Now here's the thing. Once it's been written and signed, it's a done deal. Like, the king can't reverse it. So instead with Mordecai's help, he makes another law, and he says, but on that day, the Jews can defend themselves, so they can arm themselves, and they can kill anybody who's come to kill them, and they can kill any of their enemies, and they can take the loot of any of their enemies. So kind of like balancing it out. And so it says when that day came, in Susa, the capital alone, so the Jews did end up killing their enemies, but they didn't take any of the loot. And then when they checked the other cities, it was the same idea. And so the king's like, what do you think about that, Esther? She's like, can you give them another day to do this? And so on the second day, the same thing happened. So the speculation is here there are two things going on. It was kind of like when the Hebrews were supposed to take the land of Canaan, and when they were taking the land, there were certain areas they were just supposed to kill everybody, but not to take any of the loot at all, because it had to do with like driving out sin. Okay, and then the other thing is it's showing that they were really probably only killing people as they were defending themselves, not as in plundering or as in greed on that. And so anyway, so the king's like, okay, Esther, what do you think? And she's like, oh, that's all good. Haman had 10 sons. I think we should impale them too. So he's like, okay. So they kill all Haman's family also. So, and then they put it into law. So Mordecai and Esther, with the approval of the king, obviously, they put it into law that the Jewish people are to celebrate this day. And it's to be a celebration. It's a day of gift giving and celebration of the salvation of their near annihilation. And it was put into Persian law, not just into a Jewish custom. It was put into the Persian law on that. And then we learned that Mordecai actually he flew up the ranks in the kingdom. Like, he ended up becoming the king's second-hand man. So that is the story of Purim. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this story of Purim, which is also the story from the Book of Esther. Sorry this one was longer than normal, but all right, have a good day, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.